Alright. Let's talk about cannabis. For legal purposes, let's just say this is CBD flower. Woo. All right. I want to talk about cannabis because cannabis is a plant that is like huge in my life, but I literally never talk about it, and I really don't know why. I don't know, I guess it's because it's like just so normal in my life that I almost expect everyone to already know that like almost every single video that I've ever recorded, I am either high or on the back end coming off of being high. um and I say almost because lately I have not. Like there's been a lot of times where I was kind of basically sober. And like completely, like no nothing. Yesterday it happened to me where for like a good 12, hold on, what was it, 7, 8, 9 hours that I was like I didn't smoke at all. And that's what I mean, that's how often I smoke. Like that's, I guess, where I'm trying to get at, is I usually don't go like 9 hours without smoking cannabis, and it's been like this for since I was like 15. And I've taken breaks on and off throughout that whole thing. Since then, there's a time where I had a seizure from smoking dirty dabs, dabs that had a lot of butane left in them, and maybe some other shit in it, and I don't know, but like ended up having a seizure. I quit smoking weed after that. And after I quit smoking weed, I became a vegan for the first time. First I became someone who only ate chicken. Then I weaned my way off of chicken, became a vegetarian, weaned my way off of that, and became a vegan. And I was completely sober. but And I did that a few times. And then after that, like I quit smoking weed a couple times after that as well, for a couple months. But kind of like just like what I did with kratom, where I just quit using kratom for 3 months, and now I'm back to using kratom again. But I just, I don't know. I like to, just fluctuate on and off once in a while, because I feel like these are the two plants that I'll probably use, mainly cannabis, of course, but because I feel like cannabis is the plant that I feel like I'll use for the rest of my life, no matter what. Whether it's CBD flower, or whether it's, regular flower, whether it's dabs, whether it's, vaping, whether it's edibles, whether it's whatever. Um, I just feel like cannabis is an amazing plant, and as soon as it's legal, I'm gonna start growing cannabis like it's crazy. Um, but until then, I'm actually this year I'm gonna try to have a setup so I can grow my clip dagger like you would grow cannabis, because what I've been doing for the past, because I'm on the third generation right now for these clip dagger plants that I'm growing, and I have third generation seeds that I'm going to be growing this year. And I just, I want to have fourth generation. I'm actually making the plant stronger. It's getting more potent. The smell is more potent from the clip dagger. It's interesting to see how you can change a plant's terpenes and genetics based on what you put in the soil, and based on just so many different factors of what, just so many different things that can affect the plant. Um, but I eventually want to get to doing that with cannabis. But that's why I'm kind of practicing on the clip that, I guess, so I can kind of just get used to it. Um, experimenting with, different, experimenting with the genomes and the phenomes and the different genetics of the plant. Um, Figuring out ways to change the genetics of the plant as well. But yeah, I don't know. Cannabis is such a huge part of my life that it almost goes over my head to even mention it in a video or whatever, because it's just always been there, you know? It just is what is to me, I guess. I don't know. I just don't. There's a lot of people that look at cannabis like, oh, they only smoke on the weekend, and there's a lot of people that say you shouldn't smoke every day. And I agree. I've said this before in the past. Like, I agree that if you think, other people shouldn't smoke every day, then you're probably someone who shouldn't smoke every day. But just because you shouldn't smoke every day doesn't mean someone else shouldn't smoke every day. We're all different human beings. We all are human, but we're all slightly different. So, I just recommend just knowing yourself. And with me, cannabis is just that thing that I save for nighttime. Like right now, it's nighttime. So I'm really high. During the day, I'm basically slightly buzzed off of weed. I'm it's not like I'm this high all day. And that's the key, I feel like. I feel like the key is self-control. A lot of people don't have self-control when it comes to substances or cannabis or medications or plants or even kratom. But I've said this in a previous video that, kratom is a plant that I feel like can help teach you self-control. But don't use kratom unless, whatever. But because I don't recommend any of the plants I use to people. Not cannabis, not kratom, not the psychedelics I use. None of that. Because as I've gotten older, I've gotten wiser, and I've come to realize that this is just my experience. This is just who I am. And you got to figure out who you are. And who I am is someone who smokes cannabis every day. Someone who uses kratom, almost every day. And I will take kratom breaks more often than I will take weed breaks. Meaning, like, in a year, I'll probably take anywhere from 4 to 6 months off of kratom. And in a year, I'll probably only take a month off of weed, and sometimes I won't take a day off of weed. I'll smoke all 365 days. But I just feel like that's just who I am, It's who I've always been. Weed was the first thing that I've ever really connected with, the first plant I've ever really, I guess, for lack of a better word, fell in love with. And a long time ago, I said that weed connected me and made me feel more connected to God. And this is long before I ever did psychedelics. This is long before I was ever really whatever. I mean, I was raised a Catholic, but at this point, I was so lost that I was almost like turning to the dark side, for lack of a better word. And it was just interesting how looking back, how I thought to myself that cannabis makes me feel closer to God. Because it's quite possible that cannabis was used in the anointing oil that, Jesus used a long time ago. They might have mistranslated it. There's a theory that they might have mistranslated because, they said that the plant that they thought it's not really that fragrant, and And most likely they probably use cannabis, but obviously they're trying to cover it up and shit. But just like they want to cover up Ormus, and just like they want to cover up a lot of other things, like, but that's another story. But cannabis is just something that they can't keep in a box anymore. It's gonna break out. It's gonna be legal everywhere. There's nothing they can do. And cannabis has been one of the most influential plants in my life. Like, um, almost every song I've made has been on cannabis. Almost every video. It helps me be more artistic, get more in the flow state. Um, I don't know. It helps me kind of touch base with the psychedelic aspect of reality. Because weed is a minor psychedelic. I don't, take cannabis, take a 100 to 200 milligram weed edible, guarantee, and do a dab on top of that when it kicks in on the peak of that, and I guarantee it would become a minor psychedelic. And I feel like that's what what weed anxiety is. When people say they get cannabis anxiety, because I get cannabis anxiety sometimes, but I don't feel like it's anxiety. I look at it as like it's energy. It's like I get this energy, but I also feel like cannabis anxiety also is almost like the mushroom anxiety. If you guys have ever done mushrooms, the mushroom anxiety is like if you try to take mushrooms in a party, and you might get this weird eerie mushroom vibe, and I feel like it's because it's a set and setting thing. And I think it's the same thing with cannabis. And also, the mushroom can show you some shit that you don't want to see. It can bring up the past. It can make you think about things you don't want to think about. It can show you visions you don't want to, see, you don't want to look at, but you have no choice but to look at. And people get freaked out and have anxiety from it, right? I feel like it's the same thing with cannabis because it's a minor psychedelic. What people are when you're having weed anxiety, what you're getting scared of is your own mind. You're scared of your own thoughts. You're now scared of the thoughts because what cannabis does is it speeds up the mind on a higher frequency. So because it speeds up the mind, whatever's in your mind is getting sped up, and sometimes you won't be able to hold back the thoughts you usually hold back. So they'll be coming up a lot faster and a lot more often, and you'll start to freak out about it. And and then some people start to hyperventilate, and cannabis anxiety is pretty it can be pretty intense because I've had it before, when it's really intense. When it feels like someone's sitting on your chest and you can't breathe at all and you fucking freaking out and like whatever. But I just feel like that can be part of the cannabis plant, because I feel like it's just it is what can happen when you take a psychedelic, when you take a plant that can show you yourself, that reveals you to you. You might not like you might not like what you see. So but I like that about cannabis. I like that about all the plants I use. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I use psychedelics, because I like to get punched in the face. I like to punch myself in the face with reality to let myself know who I am. I want to know who I am, whether I am who I want to be or not. I want to know the truth to who I am. I want to be able to see my mistakes that I've made. I want to be able to feel the pain I've caused other people. These are the things that psychedelics have made me feel, which is like sometimes I've had to feel the pain I've caused other people. Sometimes I've had to deal with past traumas and past, demons, but once I've gotten over that and once I face that, it's like now I love getting punched in the face of reality. Um, you know, um so yeah, I don't know. Cannabis is just something that now I usually don't get weed anxiety anymore, but now it's just something that really just, I don't know, it's a lifesaver for me. It really is. And I feel like it's that one plant that'll always be there no matter what. Um, but yeah, so this has been a talk about cannabis. Peace out, everyone.